What's up guys, welcome back to a new video and another new build. I don't know what you're thinking, how many new builds can there frickin' be? There's plenty more to come, let me tell you that. It's just a consequence of how frickin' busy we are at the moment. There's going to be a heap of builds on all sort of at the same time. And yeah, it's just how it happens. It's a logistical nightmare, but we're making it work. So this here is Dill's 105 series Landcruiser. As you can see, pretty big rig, big lift, big truck. We've got a turboed 1FZ in this thing, run by a Haltech Elite 2500. Pretty awesome setup. All the right things are here to do a really awesome setup and make this thing freaking minty. Basically the story or the rundown of this thing is that it's been around. It's been to quite a few different workshops. As far as I can tell, it's been around for quite a while. Like it's been built and turboed for quite a while. Had a few different setups, been tuned by a few different people, and I'm pretty sure the owner's never been able to find that happy medium of having it, you know, powerful but reliable. There's always been something in there, something that's wrong. He is pretty much just fed up with having so many different people touch it and make a mess of things, and he just wanted to bring it somewhere where we could do everything he wants to do in-house. Everything's on the same page. And everything's exactly how he wants it done to be. So basically when we first started talking, it was just going to be about a tune. We were just going to tune this thing. Then he had the Pulsar turbo on it with the internal wastegate actuator, and this thing just had boost control issues. It was running an absolutely absurd amount of boost because that's all they could control it to. I think it was running pretty close to 30 pound of boost through a 3582. On a 4.5 litre, which is just, it's insane. I think it made like 500 horsepower or something, but you know, this thing just, it wouldn't have been that happy. It's only a 3-inch exhaust through the car. There's a lot here that just wouldn't have been happy at that power level, and it was proven by the fact that now it's absolutely chuffing. It seems to have done some damage to some rings, a ringland or something. I think pretty much the nail in the coffin was he went to the beach and he's got a part-time four-wheel drive kit in it. So the center diff lock is now his four-wheel drive engage button, and he reckons that since someone did something, I don't know the whole story, there's so much to this car that I can't even remember all the things that he's told me, but for whatever reason his center diff lock button to engage the four-wheel drive doesn't work. So I ended up the beach in the soft sand, just having to absolutely basically kill this thing in the soft sand to get it anywhere. And I think at that sort of boost level, and that sort of heat generating in that soft sand with this thing in two-wheel drive, it just has obviously done some damage. It's picked up a ring or cracked a ringland or something, but poor old 1FZ is chuffing, which ironically is pretty much exactly what happened to the last 1FZ we built on the channel. When we pulled it apart, all of the pistons were cracked. So I've got a feeling this one's going to be very similar. But anyway, basically he just put it here, gave it to us. He pretty much told us he doesn't even want to know about the car until it's ready to do a lap of Australia. He wants to be able to do a lap of Australia. Happy days. So that's where we get into where this thing was meant to go and what we were doing. So when we first started talking about this car, we were talking about doing a fully forged 1FZ, similar to the last one we did for that 80 series. So as much as that's an awesome idea and it's really nice to have a forged engine for the protection that it provides, and you know, the extra safety and leeway and room for improvement, the problem is the 1FZ being not a super popular platform. No one really keeps parts for these engines on the shelf, and what we found when we built the last one, the last forged 1FZ, was that the wait to get engine parts was just insane. We had to order pistons, although they're not a custom piston, like they aren't custom at all, but they still have to be made to order, which means they still take, I think the last set literally took 12 weeks to get here just for pistons. So he was talking about embarking on his journey in July, I think, and we pretty much just flat out said we're not going to be able to get a fully forged 1FZ built and back in the car and have it all set up in that amount of time. It's just not enough time considering how long we have to wait for parts. So if you remember when we built the 80 series, we actually got a spare 1FZ because there were so many parts off that 80 series that were missing because it had been pulled apart before it came here. So we do have a spare 80 series 1FZ over in the corner there. Now I'm not by any means an expert on this platform, on the 1FZs, but I'm pretty sure that the bottom ends between the two are the same. So we do have a spare bottom end over there, which as far as we're aware has 6 good pistons in it, should hopefully be a good crank, you know, all those things. So between the two, we're hoping we should be able to just get away with a stock bottom end rebuild, you know, new rings, bearings, new hardware if we have to, do a stock bottom end rebuild. He's pretty much decided after how many different levels the car's been at, his goal is 300 horsepower. He'll be happy with 300 horsepower. It's a very safe number for the combo, and it should be fine for him just to sort of do a lap of Australia at that sort of power level and not hurt anything. So, you know, given the fact that he's only looking for that much power, it almost seems like a waste to go down the road of a forged setup. A stock bottom end 1FZ is going to do absolutely fine at that sort of power level, provided it's set up and tuned correctly and has the correct protections in place. So that's the plan with it. Try and build a good stock bottom end out of the two, and we'll go from there. So as well as obviously fixing the engine, getting that sorted out for him and getting it back together, we're just going to go straight all the way through the car. We're going to have a look at any wiring we want to fix or replace. We're going to replace it. We're going to sort out the fuel system properly, make sure it's safe and reliable and easy to work on and serviceable. You know, he's got an IC7 dash in there that he wants to put in to run off the Haltech Elite 2500. There's a fair few sensors that I've already seen just from starting to pull it apart, getting ready to pull his engine out. There's a fair few sensors that I'm going to add to this setup and add to the ECU. It's another one of those things where if you've spent the money on a really good ECU, if you've got all those inputs and outputs and all of those means to set up protection parameters for all those things, you may as well use it. So there's plenty of sensors I want to add to the thing. As far as, you know, it's basically one of those things where it's a fairly open budget. He just wants it done right and he wants it the best it can be. So that's what we're working with. That's what we're going towards. So we'll start off by pulling this engine out and pull it down and inspect the damage. Righto guys, so here we are. We've got the 1FZ mostly pulled down, as you can see. Haven't pulled the crank out yet, but just been inspecting the damage from this thing, the way it was tuned and behaving and everything else. Got two cracked pistons, two pistons of cracked ring lengths, 5 and 6. 6 also has wear on the bearing, which would be indicative of a bent rod. So the rod on that one is fairly questionable, but it's not that big a deal because if we're going to replace a piston, we may as well replace the rod as well. The bearings are absolutely cooked. Some of them are not too bad, and that doesn't look like they've had a lot of stuff go through them. Some of them look like they have been through the ringer. But all of them, I had to peel them all off the crank. They've all, they're not sized properly anymore, which would indicate that the thing has just been hammered, which would, well, it's basically exactly as we predicted with this thing. The way it was supposedly running around 30 pound or something, it's just outrageous. So yeah, poor old girl was just not happy at all, not even a little bit. Looks like the crank should come all right with just a linish, so we should be happy days there, although I haven't looked at the mains yet. But at this point it's looking like probably pull down our other spare 1FZ, fish out some rods and pistons. Fingers crossed they're exactly the same. Again, I'm not 100% sure. If not, we may have to use all 6 rods and pistons out of that engine, but it is what it is. Basically, we'll start the process of trying to get a healthy set of 6 together for this thing and just do a good stock bottom end rebuild for him. I've talked to him, going to get a new housing for that turbo. We don't need that internally gated housing anymore. So we'll get just a V-band rear housing with like a 106, which I'm pretty sure is what that one is anyway. It looks like it's just a Falcon housing that he's put a Pulsar core into. That's what it looks like. So I don't think it'll be any bigger than it is right now, but still, it'll be a lot nicer when it's done. We'll put the gate off the housing again, but we'll put it on the right side of the volute and we'll face it down between the engine, between the turbo and the engine, and just behind the engine mount, which is a perfect place for it. It'll be a much tidier, fabricated way to do it. We'll remake his dump pipe. We'll get rid of this silly little dump thing here that we don't need. You know, we'll move his oxygen sensor further down away from the turbine. You know, we'll just remake the hot side a little bit and tidy it up. So anyway, so begins the process. Hopefully our other spare engine's not cooked. But yeah, just stock head bolts in this thing. So we'll put some we'll put a Cometic head gasket and ARP head studs in it, but just a stock bottom end with that setup. And at this stage, we'd pretty much be going until that turbo's out of puff on this thing, which will be really interesting because that's the exact turbo that I would have spec'd for the forged 1FZ we did for the 80 series last year. Unfortunately, he didn't have the budget and didn't want to pay to upgrade his turbo, but we just simply ran out of turbo on that thing, which was holding it back so much. But that would have been the exact turbo I would have spec'd for it, but probably in a T4 footprint, just to have a bit more housing. But it would be the perfect balance of, you know, having enough puff to make some power, but still in the interest of it being a four-wheel drive, keeping that really nice grunt and really nice torque that these things naturally are known for. So that would have been pretty cool. But anyway, the biggest thing I'm struggling with at the moment is room. As you can see, just pulling this down in the middle of the shed, it takes up a lot of room to do this, and we have just none of it. So got to try and figure out where I'm going to actually put all this stuff so that I can continue pulling down the other engine, which is easier said than done at the moment. Righto guys, so just getting further into this thing, I had sort of assumed we had seen the worst, that's why I wasn't filming the rest of the pull down, but just got, one of the things that sort of sent alarm bells, I don't know if you're going to see it, it might be too dark, but you can see just down there, right there on the bottom, found heaps and heaps of plastic. There's also a bit of metal in there. So we were a bit confused as to what would be plastic and metal. I've checked the timing guides. They don't seem like they've deteriorated to the point where there'd be that much plastic in there. But that being said, they might have had a timing guide, let go at a previous point, and someone put new timing stuff on it. Like the chain looks pretty new, fairly good. But anyway, I just pulled off our thrust bearing, our thrust main, which is number 4. Yeah, 4 on a inline 6. See what's in there? That's not very nice. And that's what we've got in here. Lots of metal, which is the opposite of what you want. So, also the rest of these main bearings weren't very good either. About as good as the rod bearings were. Some of them are really, really bad. So it's pretty stuck on. Same with this one. Still got to peel this one off. All right, so just pop that up. Whoa, that is cooked. Holy crap. That's fucked. Well, hopefully the crank in the other one is okay. No good at all. But that explains some of the metal. Yikes. And that number 5 one is not a lot better. So yeah, poor old thing. Very ungood. All right, so I just got off the phone with the owner, and there's been a little bit of a change in circumstance. I don't know if I went through it at the start of this video, but I'll go through it now just in case, so I can put it in. But originally the plan was to build a forged engine for this thing, but the owner was planning on going traveling around Australia, and he needed it done, I think it was about July. And when we built the forged 1FZ for the 80 series last time, getting parts, forged parts built or made took forever. And at that point, there was sort of a bit of urgency to getting this thing done so we could go on his trip. But his circumstances have changed and he's put off his traveling, so now there's not really any rush. So we talked about it. We talked about going forged now that there's not really a huge rush. The other thing is that over the last 2 years, 1FZs have sort of come to be a fair bit more popular than they were back then. So perhaps some of these companies, we might get lucky and they might have some on the shelf sort of thing. We might not have to wait. But I talked to him about the gearboxes in those things because I don't really know a lot about the platform. He reckons the gearboxes aren't too great, and at the end of the day, he's really only looking for around 400 horsepower anyway. So there's no reason a stock bottom end 1FZ will not do 400 horsepower all day, every day of the week, as long as obviously it's tuned correctly and the bottom end's in good condition. So in order to try and save him some money, I still reckon we'll just go stock bottom end. That way it gets it done ASAP. It's going to do what he wants to do now, and we can start looking at building a forged engine out of what we got left, a forged bottom end, and that way if he wants to, we can swap it back in another day. But personally, if the gearbox has only got to handle about 400 horsepower anyway, I really don't see the need. Stock bottom end's going to be heaps for that. It's going to be fine. And there's not really any need unless you're going to go more power, which you're going to start cooking gearboxes and stuff. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that to me. But that's just me. He's going to come out on Monday. We're going to have a chat about it anyway. But that's pretty much the plan. Go stock bottom end, try and get this thing together, put some head studs and a decent head gasket in it. Going to stay stock cams because it's a 4-wheel drive. Try and keep that rev range down low. Try and keep it nice and responsive. Same way we always try and set up four-wheel drives. You don't want them peaky, it's useless. One thing we have decided though, we're gonna ditch the log manifold. Instead of buying a new T3 housing for that turbo and fabbing up the gate provision on the housing and basically redoing what's there, we've decided we're going to actually build him a new high mount manifold. We're going to go T4, so that way we can put a T4 housing on that turbo, which for this 4.5 litre is going to be a lot happier. I don't think there's really any need to film me pulling down the other engine because it's completely unknown anyway, and it's not going to really, basically just be watching the same thing again, which is boring. So that's going to be it for this episode. Righto guys, so I still haven't had time to edit this video, and I'm at this point with this thing now, so I thought I'd just tack this onto the end. But I've got the second engine, well, I had it pulled down. I pulled the crank out of it. So this crank is still not too great. The mains are still probably going to need a bit of a cleanup, probably a grind, but I think it's still going to be better than that other crank with those 2 cooked journals. So I'm going to send both cranks to the machine shop and sort of let them decide pretty much which one they reckon is going to be the best one to use, and the other one can pretty much be a paperweight. So the reason I had this soaking in WD-40 and all the pistons for 2 days, and some of them still are not moving. So not too great, not too awesome. Very stuck in those bores. But yesterday I actually called around and found someone that does have a set of half thou over CP pistons on the shelf, ready to go. So we've decided to just go forge with this thing. At this stage now, we're just going to go spool rods and the CP half mil over pistons, just for the sake of making the thing bulletproof, pretty much. Just to make it super duper reliable. You know, that thing forged with the amount of power we're going to make, never be able to hurt the thing. So in the interest of just having it just an absolutely bulletproof tourer, yeah, we're going to go forge now, which means I don't have to get these pistons out. So I put this all back together as best I can, just so it doesn't take up much room. It already takes up this much room. We're really starting to, space is really starting to become an issue, so trying our best to try and consolidate everything as much as possible and condense everything as much as possible so it takes up as little room as we can. So anyway, got heaps of spares here. Probably once we finish this build, probably just try and give this away, honestly. I don't think we'll ever have a use for it. But I'm glad we had it for this particular build because we've got some spares. So once this is done, either if he doesn't want it, just kind of basically try and give it away or send it to scrap. But yeah, hopefully between these 2 cranks, one of them will be okay. Like this one, I don't know, looking at your field number 1, it's gonna need a grind for sure. But I have a feeling that one, those 2 mains that were cooked, I've got a feeling that might not even be savable, those 2. So at least it's better than that. So anyway, now I'll sign it off. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, hope you're looking forward to the next one. We'll talk to you then. Peace out. See you. Bye.